I want to thank all the speakers and all the people that are joining us in this webinar. Usually we do this kind of events during the Human Rights Council, and the idea is to have face-to-face contact with permanent missions and with the different stakeholders participating in the debate with the Special Rapporteur on the right to education. Though the coronavirus crisis has forced us to be creative, and also I'm really happy that we can do that, and I'm happy that many people that usually cannot be part of these kinds of events can join us today from all across the world. And even I'm talking about people attending this event and even about the speakers. I'm taking this opportunity to thank all of them, because also in terms of timing, it's not easy for some of them, especially the ones from overseas. And the same for many attendees that I know they are following, that they are following us from different parts of the world. I hope we will have some time for questions. So feel free. The idea is, like, if you have any questions, please put them on the chat, and we will ask them to the speakers at the event of their interventions. And although I have been repeating that several times, I say it once again: we are doing this event in English and in French. So if you want translation, like, just check in the right bottom, and you will see a place where you can choose English, French, or if you speak both languages, you just can follow the event in both languages. So before we start, just a little introduction before giving the floor to these amazing speakers we have. We are in the Special Rapporteur just presented last week this report on coronavirus and education. If something we have seen with this coronavirus is that, as the president of UNESCO has said, the director, sorry, has said that there was no educational system prepared for this crisis. And we can see that with the magnitude of that, like 90% of children have been unable to attend to school at some point during this crisis. And although there has been the many improvements in online teaching, and many children have been able to continue with their training through online teaching, also we have seen that especially the most deprived ones have been facing problems receiving this education. And what we have seen also in this crisis is that the whole system has been exposed. And the good thing about that is, like, we have been able to see clearly which are the cornerstones of the educational systems, the teachers that have been underlined and have been clearly mentioned by the Special Rapporteur in her report, but also the parents. Anyone who is a parent has noticed how important is he for the realization of the right to education, and also the civil society. We have seen good initiative all across the globe about that. And this idea of all these new actors working together has been quite a new thing. In fact, we have seen that the Special Rapporteur in her report mentioned that it is crucial, the mutual trust between public institutions, schools, families, and communities to overcome this crisis. Also, the UNESCO director has remarked the importance of education as a common good. And that's somehow why we are here. Like, we are here to reflect on this idea, on how different actors are dealing with the coronavirus, and how working together is the best way to overcome this crisis. On this regard, we are thinking it's a time to overcome this fight of oppose that sometimes we have in the field of education, this collectivism against individualism, these non-state actors against the state actors. It's a time of working together. We have seen good initiative at different levels. I'm thinking at the international level, the Global Education Coalition, but also the national level, we have seen many good initiatives between parents, civil societies, the government. The Special Rapporteur has developed pretty much in her report the role of teachers. That's something that has been forgotten for some political actors these last years. But we are doing this event also to underline the importance of some other actors, such as the families, the parents, international organizations, or even non-state schools. That's why we have speakers such as Mr. Fernandez, Mr. Richard, Mrs. Crouchberg, representing all these stakeholders. And then we have Ashley Werner from the Johns Hopkins University that is going to share with us some of the research they have done on how to overcome this crisis from this perspective in the US. Okay, we are still waiting for the special reporter. So in the meanwhile, we are going to start with the second speaker. We hope like she will be able to connect soon. So I'm giving the floor to David Fernandez Puyana. I'm going to tell you a bit about him. David Fernandez Puyana, we are both from the same city. We are from Barcelona. He was graduate in law, philosophy and science education at the University Pompeu Fabra. He has an MA on international relations by the University Pompeu Fabra in Spain, and a PhD in law with European mention also with the University of Pompeu Fabra. Also an MA on human rights protection by the University of Alcalá de Henares, and an LLM on human rights by the University of Essex. He is currently the permanent observer of the United Nations for Peace to the UNESCO headquarters in Paris and the Office of the United Nations in Geneva. He's also professor of international public law and European Union at the Bat Oliva, and he has had some experience previously working in the Spanish Red Cross at UNESCO, in the International Association of Peace Messenger Cities, at the Human Rights Office of Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Spain, and in the Permanent Mission of Costa Rica. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank OIDEL for organizing this event entitled A Common Good Approach to COVID-19 in the Field of Education, in coordination with the International Office of Catholic Education and the European Parents Association. In particular, my deepest gratitude goes to Mr. Ignasi Grau and his wonderful team in Geneva, and my full respect for the other speakers who will share with me this important reflection on education. During the second half of the 20th century and beginning of the current one, several human flu pandemics have occurred, affecting millions of people, in particular three, in 1957, 1968, and 2009. All these flu pandemics, including the one on the COVID-19, are spreading waves, which may last weeks to months until the vaccine arrives, and therefore the potential impact in the business community may be very hard. Finally, schools may be temporarily closed, the freedom of movement restrained, mass gatherings cancelled, and some travel restrictions imposed by the health authorities. However, the outbreak of the COVID-19 is being by far the most severe because affects to the globalization. The free movement of people, goods, and services led by globalization has also become a source of spreading diseases. Most governments around the world have closed educational institutions in an attempt to contain the spread of the COVID pandemic. These nationwide closures were impacting over 72% of the world's students' population. The main risk identified by the Secretary General for the next future of societies because of the COVID-19 pandemic could be the following: erosion of the trust in public institutions, economic instability impacting in particular in women, the postponement of elections or referenda, incentives for some actors to promote division and turmoil in conflict situation areas, escalation of terrorism and bioterrorism, increase of supremacist attitudes, exploitation of hate speech against vulnerable groups, and limitation of media and civic space. In order to combat the consequence derived from the COVID-19, it's vital to promote the right to education, which is an essential component of the human rights law. Although the right to education is generally considered to be a cultural right, it's also related to civil, political, economic, and social rights. Education is a precondition and the key to the enjoyment of all human rights. Taking into account that the right to education cannot be viewed in isolation, it can be concluded that the fulfillment of the right to education will allow the enjoyment of the right to freedom of opinion and expression and the right to participation of all human beings in a more just society. Education should be directed not only to the full development of the human personality and the respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms, but also to the promotion of mutual understanding and respect, gender equality, friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and the maintenance of peace. Another problem increased by the COVID-19 is the inequality, which affects all social strata. Women constitute a main group affected by this inequality, as shown by the increasing number of women victims of violence. Other groups seriously affected are children, indigenous people, persons with disabilities, refugees, asylum seekers, migrant workers, the elderly, minorities, displaced, or people infected or suffering from AIDS. Educational statistics demonstrate how discrimination based on gender, race, ethnicity, religion, or language combines to trap new generations of people in a vicious cycle of denied rights, where the lack of access to education leads to the exclusion for the labor market, which then results in perpetuating and increasing the poverty. As stressed by the United Nations, the exclusion of the poorest from education perpetuates social inequalities in many parts of the world. In this line, a group of UN entities rise that more than ever, as the COVID-19 poses a global threat to our collective humanity. Our primary focus should be on the preservation of life, regardless of status. This crisis demands a coherent, effective international approach that leaves no one behind. Many refugees, displaced, stateless people, and migrants have skills and resources that can be part of the solution. As highlighted by the UNESCO Declaration, an integrated framework of action on education for peace, human rights, and democracy, education should develop non-violent conflict resolution through the promotion of peace, tolerance, solidarity, compassion, sharing, and caring. In the afterwards of the COVID-19, human rights education should aim to build a universal culture of human rights through the encouragement and promotion of attitudes directed to peace building and maintenance. The Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace recognize education as a part of the culture of peace. Education at all levels is one of the principal means to build a culture of peace. In this context, human rights education is of particular importance. And I finish this conference with the motto of the UN University for Peace. If you want peace, works for peace. Thank you very much, Ignacio.
Thank you so much, David. It's an honor to have you here. Probably one of the most active men in the Human Rights Council. So hearing once again about you, it's a real pleasure. And now I'm going to give the floor to Philippe Richard. Philippe Richard is now the director of the International Office of Catholic Education, which represents the biggest network of schools in the world, probably. They represent millions of students, parents, and schools of Catholic schools around the world. And its mission, as it is stated in their website, is to promote the creation alongside the schools with a public mission and educational institutions of educational communities in which all partners work together responsibly for educational and cultural progress. Philippe Richard is also a big expert on human rights and on the right to education. He is also currently the director of the Centre Universitaire Catholique de Bourgogne. He has been the director of the Centre d'études et de recherche internationale de l'enseignement catholique. He also has been the director of the Human Rights Institute de l'Université Catholique de Lyon and has published many publications on the right to education, such as Faire vivre l'éducation. He also holds a PhD on international security and defense by the University of Lyon 3, Jean Moulin. And they recently, from OIDEL, they have published this report on how educational schools around the world has been dealing in collaboration with the government with this crisis. And with a great pleasure, I give you the floor, Philippe.
Merci beaucoup, Ignacy. Merci beaucoup, l'OIDEL et tous les autres partenaires de ce webinaire d'avoir organisé ce webinaire. Je crois que c'est un moment important de rencontre avec différents acteurs qui sont mobilisés depuis bien longtemps et depuis le début, j'allais dire, de la crise sanitaire sur les questions de la crise sanitaire. Et je me réjouis aussi de pouvoir partager ces quelques moments. Je regrette que Madame Koumbu Bolibari ne soit pas encore arrivée. Il se trouve que nous étions quelques-uns au Palais des Nations vendredi pour écouter son rapport. Et son rapport est très riche. J'aurais voulu la féliciter pour son rapport. Et je pense que son rapport pouvait aussi ouvrir un certain nombre de questions importantes. Alors, puisque Madame Koumbu Bolibari, rapporteuse spéciale des Nations Unies sur le droit à l'éducation, avait décidé cette année de focaliser l'attention sur le Covid-19 et la crise sanitaire, c'est de ça dont nous allons parler, évidemment, dans les quelques minutes qui viennent. Je veux juste, dans un premier temps, rappeler rapidement la réalité du réseau des écoles catholiques dans le monde. Je ne sais pas, Ignacy a dû le dire, on a quelques chiffres. On sait aujourd'hui qu'il y a à peu près 210 000 écoles catholiques dans le monde, ce qui représente 62 millions d'élèves. Donc, simplement pour dire qu'effectivement, nous sommes là à l'OIEC dans un point d'observation inimaginable par rapport à la situation du Covid-19, puisque chaque jour, nous avions des informations de l'ensemble des parties du monde. Et malheureusement, la crise n'est pas terminée. Elle s'étend actuellement beaucoup en Amérique latine. Et je voudrais avoir une pensée maintenant pour toutes les personnes qui ont été malades du Covid-19, toutes celles qui sont décédées. Il y a eu presque 30 000 personnes décédées en France, c'est dans mon pays, et dans beaucoup d'autres pays aussi. On dit qu'il y a eu 500 000 morts déjà, donc je voudrais avoir une pensée pour toutes ces personnes qui sont décédées suite à cette crise sanitaire. Alors, évidemment, je crois que l'orateur précédent nous l'a rappelé, cette crise sanitaire, elle remet au cœur du débat international un certain nombre de réalités en termes de droits de l'homme et aussi, bien entendu, le droit à l'éducation. Le droit à l'éducation qui, dans la Déclaration universelle, trouve sa place quasiment à la fin, c'est l'article 26 de la Déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme, quasiment un des derniers articles de la Déclaration, mais cette crise montre que cet article devient au centre. Et comme l'a très bien dit notre orateur précédent, aujourd'hui, on ne peut plus faire l'économie, et cette crise nous le montre, d'une approche vraiment indivisible des droits de l'homme, parce que le Covid a parfaitement montré que si 80 ou 90% dans certains pays, voire 100% des élèves ont été privés de l'école et de l'éducation en général, ce sont aussi des élèves ou des jeunes, des familles qui ont été privés des repas, qui ont été privés d'un certain nombre de soins qu'ils pouvaient obtenir par le biais, par exemple, des systèmes scolaires. Et donc, on voit bien que la question d'éducation n'est pas seulement la question la plus importante. Elle est juste un révélateur de cette crise. Et je crois qu'il faut le prendre comme ça. Donc, c'est vraiment l'occasion pour nous qui sommes engagés, et c'est la responsabilité d'organisations comme la nôtre, comme l'Office international, comme je dis, qui regroupe 62 millions d'élèves. Donc, c'est vraiment l'occasion de renforcer notre présence au sein des organisations internationales vis-à-vis des États pour véritablement travaillé d'arrache-pied sur la défense des droits de l'homme et en tout cas du droit de l'éducation. Cette crise a vraiment montré toutes les fractures sociales, toutes les inégalités, toute la grande détresse et toute la grande pauvreté qui ont vu le jour à cause de cette période-là. Tout ça existait déjà en réalité, mais la crise n'a fait que le révéler grandeur nature aux yeux de tout le monde. Et on l'a observé tous les jours. Voilà. Alors, évidemment, avec l'aide de notre ami Quentin Woodon, nous avons rédigé un rapport et nous avons décidé de consacrer le thème de ce rapport aussi au Covid-19, puisque, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, il nous a semblé que le IEC était un point d'observation intéressant aujourd'hui de la réalité du Covid-19 et de la crise sanitaire dans le monde. Et je crois que tous les efforts que nous mettons en place les uns les autres, que ce soit le IEC, mais tous les autres partenaires à part égale, sont là aussi pour vraiment renforcer tous les engagements qui ont été pris par les États. Je me rappelle par exemple de la réunion d'Incheon en 2015 où on a rédigé cette intention sur éducation 2040, les ODD, l'ODD 4, enfin tous les autres objectifs de développement. Cette crise nous oblige à nous mobiliser encore davantage et encore plus au profit des droits de l'homme et des droits de l'éducation. Comment nous avons observé cette crise? Nous l'avons observée à travers un certain nombre d'outils. Je pense par exemple à des enquêtes de terrain que nous avons menées au jour le jour. Nous avons organisé des temps de rencontre, des webinaires. Nous avons des contacts directs avec nos membres, nos secrétariats régionaux aussi. Je pense par exemple au Comité européen pour l'enseignement catholique à Bruxelles, a fait aussi un gros travail en Europe pour donner des informations sur les choses. Donc, nous avons une vision qui est assez objective de ce qui s'est passé. Et le rapport tente de distinguer deux situations, la situation des pays en voie de développement et la situation des pays dits développés. Et on a constaté, et ça c'est pas un scoop, tout le monde l'a dit, et Madame le rapporteur l'a dit aussi vendredi aux Nations Unies, que l'Afrique subsaharienne, par exemple, a été 10 fois plus victime que d'autres continents de cette crise sanitaire. Et je crois qu'il va falloir s'en rappeler très, très sérieusement. Donc, il y a au centre de cette crise, ce que nous avons pu observer, la mise en évidence des fractures sociales et des inégalités face à l'éducation, bien sûr, mais face à l'ensemble des autres droits. Des fractures et des inégalités que nous connaissons déjà, que les organisations internationales pointent du doigt tous les jours, mais que la crise a vraiment exacerbé. Et cet état de fait risque vraiment de fragiliser davantage les objectifs fixés par les Nations Unies, notamment au DD4. Et c'est un encouragement, comme je disais tout à l'heure, à ne pas prendre à la légère toutes les politiques d'éducation pour tous qui progressent vaille que vaille durant ces années, et que le IEC a toujours soutenu et qu'il continuera à diffuser dans son réseau. Pour les écoles catholiques, la lutte contre la pauvreté mise en évidence par le Covid-19 est une priorité. Elle a été relayée par un certain nombre de prises de parole, notamment du pape François, qui a beaucoup insisté sur cette question de l'accueil et de l'éducation pour les plus pauvres. Et comme je disais, nous avons observé comment en Afrique, l'Église aussi, de manière locale, s'est vraiment engagée grâce à son réseau caritatif. Là, notre enquête le montre bien. Et il y a, je sais, dans ce webinaire, un certain nombre de gens qui sont présents là et qui vont se reconnaître, comment l'Église, à travers son réseau caritatif, s'est engagée de manière transversale, non pas seulement pour pallier au manque d'éducation, mais aussi au manque de soins, de santé, d'accès à l'eau, d'accès à la nourriture, etc. Nous avons observé que les écoles catholiques sont censées aussi disposer d'outils d'adaptation à la crise sanitaire. Par exemple, il y a de nombreux projets éducatifs d'écoles à travers le monde qui mettent l'accent sur l'attention particulière aux enfants et aux jeunes. Et bien, la crise oblige ces écoles à transformer ces paroles en actes. Et on va être très vigilant à ça. L'attention particulière, ce n'est plus seulement un principe ou l'expression d'une valeur, mais ça devient un enchaînement de gestes éducatifs et pédagogiques au jour le jour envers chaque enfant scolarisé. Et je crois que cette expérience qui consiste à aller pendant la crise chaque jour au contact de l'élève, et c'est plus l'élève qui vient vers l'enseignant, c'est l'enseignant qui va aller vers l'élève, bouscule un petit peu le paradigme de l'éducation et oblige à adapter une stratégie pédagogique beaucoup plus centrée sur l'attention particulière à l'élève. Voilà, donc je termine en disant que là, maintenant, il va falloir lancer un travail d'analyse de pratique, il va falloir prendre en considération la souffrance des membres des communautés éducatives. Je sais qu'il y a aussi des parents qui sont partenaires de ce webinaire. Il y a des souffrances physiques, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, du fait de l'atteinte par certaines personnes de la maladie du corona, mais des souffrances aussi psychologiques. On était en mode dégradé, donc finalement, il y a beaucoup de souffrances et il va falloir prendre en compte toutes ces souffrances auxquelles on n'était pas vraiment préparé et produire vraiment de la résilience dans chaque établissement. C'est vraiment une fonction essentielle d'un établissement qui se dit catholique. Cette crise va fondamentalement changer notre regard sur l'éducation. On va devoir chercher des nouvelles manières d'enseigner. Et on va devoir aussi, et je vais terminer là-dessus, mettre à contribution de plus en plus d'autres acteurs que les seuls acteurs traditionnels de l'éducation pour assurer le droit à l'éducation pour tous, notamment pour les plus pauvres. On va devoir réconcilier éducation formelle et informelle. On va devoir inviter tous les producteurs de logiciels, les producteurs de software, et les fournisseurs de réseaux à nous soutenir davantage et à faire des efforts en faveur de l'éducation, notamment des plus pauvres, et de faire de l'éducation une cause sans objet lucratif pour qu'on arrête de faire toujours ce procès de la marchandisation de l'éducation. C'est fini, ça. La crise a montré que, au contraire, on devait vraiment demander à tous ces acteurs de venir le plus gratuitement possible aider à pallier à ces grands dysfonctionnements-là. Et enfin, on devra sensibiliser les États, premiers prescripteurs de l'éducation, à faire davantage que ce qu'ils font, y compris davantage les partenaires de l'école dans le travail de tous les jours. Voilà, j'espère ne pas avoir été trop long. Si je l'ai été, je m'en excuse.
Un grand merci, Philippe. Tu n'as pas été trop long. C'est comme toujours un plaisir de t'entendre. I know, and in fact, I'm happy that you could participate on that. I think that the Catholic education, as the biggest probably non-profit network of the schools, has to have need to have a voice in this kind of debates and on this kind of crisis. So glad to hear you and to hear the opinions of the Catholic education on this kind of crisis. The next speaker is Ashley Werner. I'm really happy that she's here. I met Ashley like 6 months ago. I knew her through her research. I think she's one of the best researchers on the field of the right to education right now in the world. Right now, she is the Deputy Director of the Johns Hopkins Institute for Educational Policy and also an Associate Professor at the Johns Hopkins University School of Education. She previously has been Deputy Director of the City University of New York Institute for Educational Policy and the Director of the Education Program at the Institute for Advanced Studies. Her fields of interest are relationship between education structure and state funding in democratic nations, religious education and citizenship formation, and also teacher preparation in different national contexts. She holds a degree from Davidson College and you will be able to correct me if I'm saying this wrong, a PhD from Oxford University. She recently has been participating on the project of The Return, How Should Educational Leaders Prepare for Reentry and Beyond, which is a really comprehensive document on how to go back to the school in the US from a common perspective, and really looking forward to hear you, Ashley. You have the floor.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join this conference. It's a real privilege and a pleasure. I do work on international education, and it's lovely to meet some of you whose work we study. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the public health workers and doctors and researchers who are tirelessly trying to solve this health crisis. And it makes it possible for us to gather to talk about this important right to education. By way of introduction, many of you know that the United States, unlike many of our democratic peers, does not routinely fund and support equal access to different kinds of schools, Catholic, Islamic, Montessori, and so on. Some of our states in the federal system do, but typically only quite wealthy families are able to find communities of education for their children that comport with their religious, philosophical, or even pedagogical approach. Educational pluralism is the democratic norm, and some of us do hope to effectively move the conversation towards that in the United States. In the meantime, the Institute at Johns Hopkins University that I co-lead with my colleague David Steiner, we conduct research, create resources for the field, and make policy recommendations that we hope are salient across all different types of schools. Because some things we know from research matter, whether we're teaching in a state school, a Jewish school, or a Waldorf school. So in these times with COVID-19, our institute at Hopkins partnered with Chiefs for Change. Chiefs for Change is a national member organization in the United States whose leaders represent some 30% of American students. We partner with Chiefs for Change quite often, but in this case, we partnered on looking at research-based practices that would inform how we open schools in the fall. And to do that, we did look at research from around the world, what has worked, and research from across the different school sectors. You can find our report on the Institute's website or on Chiefs for Change's website. I'd be happy to answer any questions after this conversation, but in general, we make 4 observations and 4 recommendations. Our hope is that this terrible circumstance can be leveraged for good for our young people. So our report, The Return, focuses on 4 areas that we would suggest need to be addressed before the fall. That they can time our talent, social and emotional well-being, and finally academics. So I'm going to take each one of those briefly and in turn. First, time. One of the facts about the United States school systems is that we tend to spend less time on instruction. Many of our peer nations, for example, spend 190, 200 days out of the year on instruction. The United States has 180, in most cases by statute. This means that particularly low-income students have less learning time. And so one of our recommendations is that, well, one of the consequences is what we call summer melt. We have a very long summer vacation, and in the process of that, at 3 months away from the classroom, particularly our most vulnerable students lose academic traction. So our recommendation is that we contemplate reconfiguring our school calendar to have shorter vacations and to have more instruction time and more nimble instruction time. And our hope is that that will allow us to return to school and accelerate our students' learning. The second recommendation concerns the way we construct our labor contracts. In the United States, many systems operate with quite strict labor contracts. And we also, as a default, expect all teachers to do all things. this is obviously not effective or as effective as it could be. So our second recommendation is that we allow teachers who are exquisitely skilled with imparting knowledge and content to their students, that those teachers have more instructional presence with more students. You can have master teachers or mentor teachers who, and this particularly works when with a hybrid model or a remote model, that those teachers have access to more students, and that other professionals, teachers and otherwise, who are excellent at creating personal relationships and mentoring students be tasked with small group mentoring advisories throughout the year. So our hope is, and there is research that supports this model, that this kind of reconfiguration honors teachers and their variety and in their talents, and also gives our students access more routinely to high caliber instruction. The third area we highlight in our report is this notion of social and emotional well-being. As we know, schools do many things besides impart academic skills and knowledge. Schools also, intentionally or not, convey messages to students about their purpose, the meaning that they have, and the human dignity that is theirs across the board. And this operates most effectively through school cultures that are strong and clear and shared and communal. So we are hoping that this crisis will allow and impress upon all schools the need to create those personal connections within the school walls, so that, or remotely, so that students feel known and seen. Our institute has created a school culture survey that I would be delighted to talk to any of you all about. We have field tested it in a variety of schools, and we think it really provides clear indications to school leaders about how parents feel connected, which students feel left out, how academically strong teachers feel the school is, and so forth. So again, it's an opportunity to highlight the importance of student well-being and students' agency over their learning. The fourth and final area of recommendation that we focus on is this notion of academic coherence. Now, my colleague David Steiner has written a lot about academic coherence. Again, this is an area in which the United States has much to learn. We do not, as a rule, require high-level content knowledge on mastery on the part of students. We tend to focus on skills over content, unlike many of the highest performing school systems in the world. Furthermore, we tend to have curriculum, instruction, and assessments that do not align. Some states in our country and some systems are changing that pathway, but we recommend that they take this even more seriously and that we create a more sequenced and spiraled academic plan for students. This is particularly important as we go back to school, when many of our students will have lost ground, not only for the typical summer melt, but also simply because of the remote learning for which they were unprepared and our systems were unprepared. It is all the more important that we give teachers the tools they need to not only remediate, but to accelerate student learning. And this is most obvious when there is a clear learning pathway that goes throughout the K-12. So I will close my remarks now. I appreciate your giving me an opportunity to share our report and our thinking, and I look forward to questions and to hearing from the other panelists.
Thank you, Ashley. A pleasure, as usual, to hear from you. We have put in the chat so everybody can have access the document, the return, as some people also were asking on how to know more about that, and also how to know more about your work and the work of your network. Before to give the floor to Arja Grauchenberg, I want to let you know that we are working with the special reporter so she can talk. If she's connected, we cannot see her. Like, I will really appreciate if she can talk me through the chat, and I'll put her as a panelist. But she will be able. It looks like she will be able to join us soon. Well, we are working on that, and also with great pleasure, I'm gonna give the floor to Arja Grauchenberg. Arja Grauchenberg is a mother of three. She has lived abroad for almost 20 years and has been actively involved in parent representation in the schools attended by her children. Upon return to Austria, her home country, she started to engage in the Regional Parent Association and was later elected member of the board of the European Parent Associations, where she served as president until last year, and is currently engaged as a project coordinator. The European Parent Association probably is one of the largest networks of parent associations in Europe and in the world. Also, in last year, she was elected vice president of the Lifelong Learning Platform. The Lifelong Learning Platform is a platform of 43 active networks in the field of education, working specifically in the European Union. She's trained as a linguist for Romance languages, and she has worked as a tourist guide while still pursuing teacher training course at Vienna University, with a special focus on multilingualism, diversity, and multicultural classes. Arja is a big expert and has worked, as I say, broadly in the field of parents' rights, in the field of education, and she will give us a presentation on the important role of parents on this crisis. We all the people here that are parents know all the sacrifice that they have been doing. So the idea of her intention is to raise the voice of these parents in order to work together with the authorities and with the different schools. The floor is yours, Arja.
Well, thank you very much for this introduction and the invitation to speak to all of you here today at this online event about the view of parents on education as a common good. As already mentioned, I represent the European Parents Association, and I would like to briefly present our organization, which not all of you might be familiar with.
Arja, sorry, I'm going to show the, it's about, I'm about to, okay.
If you can't, it doesn't, it doesn't matter. Very good.
Are you able to watch to see the presentation?
I see the presentation, yes. I hope everybody else as well. Yeah. Very good. And I will just tell you when to change the screen, and that will be perfect. All right, so you can change already to the next slide. Thank you. The European Parents Association is actually an umbrella organization for national and regional parents association, or federations of parents associations active in the field of education. IPA was founded in 1985 in Milan in Italy and has its seat in Brussels since 1987. It's recognized there as a non-profit civil society organization. We have around 30 members that cover 25 European countries, European member states, EU member states, but not only. Also, we have a member in Serbia, in Ukraine, and they come from a variety of sectors. Public, like in Denmark, Cyprus, or Norway. Private, for example, in Italy, or mixed, as in the case of France or Spain. Can you please change the screen again? Thank you. Our main objectives are, on the one hand, we foster the exchange of information and good practice among our members. We organize parents' training opportunities during our GAs and conferences. We disseminate and discuss European policies in the field of education and training. And on the other hand, we represent parents on the European level by participating in conferences, expert working groups, roundtables, and other events organized by the European Commission, the European Parliament, the Council of Europe, and the different institutions. We're also active in different projects, Erasmus+, Horizon 2020, and so on. And we are members of or partners of other networks, as you mentioned, the Lifelong Learning Platform, the Social Platform, Make Mothers Matter, the Foundation Learning for Wellbeing, to just name a few. Our main aim is to support the highest possible quality of education for all children in Europe, especially by active involvement in EU-level policy development and assessment. You can please change to the next slide. Here you can see our core paradigm. That is that parents are the primary educators of their children, not only the first chronologically, but also potentially the best. In any case, the most impacting, as we know from various studies on the matter, that the influence of the home is much greater, especially for younger children, than anything else. The influence is later balanced by an increasing importance of peers, but it remains actually very strong throughout a person's life, whether directly or indirectly, in a positive or also in a negative way. This is why the European Parents Association strongly promotes and advocates for the active involvement of parents as primary educators at all stages of the education of their children. Parents need to be supported, consulted, and empowered, which is probably the most important point, to take on their part of this shared responsibility and make informed decisions. We are therefore very grateful to the Special Rapporteur, because we see that parents and families are mentioned rather often in the report, actually 32 times altogether. And they also play a vital role in some of the conclusions. If you could change to the next slide, please. Number 6 of the conclusion mentions the necessity of good relationships and mutual trust between all stakeholders. Here, the governments, teachers unions, and other education workers are named explicitly, as well as associations, parents, and the wider community. We actually miss a little bit in this enumeration the learners themselves, so the pupils and students, who should also play an essential role. But you mentioned them in the number F, in point F of your report, but we think that they should play a prominent role also in the conclusions. Including pupils in decision-making processes is not a very widely established practice. And as it is true for parents, they are often forgotten when it comes to decisions that actually directly or indirectly concern their learning and well-being. One thing that we have certainly learned from the current crisis is that where this cooperation among different stakeholders worked well, a lot of positive effects could be achieved. And despite the devastating consequences of the pandemic, learning processes could continue, even though in a very different way to before the crisis. As already mentioned, parents had an essential role in these processes, and we appreciate point 7, which suggests to draw on these experiences and to continue to foster the role of parents and families in the learning of their children.
Sorry, Arya, they told me like people were unable to see the slides, so
No problem, no problem. Then I will just continue.
I hope it works now.
No, okay. You can leave it there, that's fine. Yeah. We fully agree with the Special Rapporteur's finding that the shift to distance learning should be reserved for exceptional cases and not become the new normal. Because we also believe that educational institutions are much more than spaces to accumulate knowledge, but they also have a crucial social component that cannot and should not be replaced by online meetings, even in places where this is theoretically possible. Yes, you can change the slide, please. A reopening of schools must therefore remain an essential goal for all countries. And the conditions under which this can happen should be negotiated among all stakeholders, as also mentioned in the report. Applying the principle of subsidiarity seems to us the only adequate response to make sure that the adopted measures are tailored to the needs of those concerned and not submerged under a one-size-fits-all approach. Here we would also like to take the opportunity to insist on keeping education as a common good that can be established and funded in many different ways, and not according to this one-size-fits-all principle either. As parents, we know that children are very different. If you have several, you can observe this astonishing fact in your own family. Even though you have the impression that you treat them all the same, ask your children, they'll tell you it's not the same for each of them. So they have very different needs, talents, worries, and joys. And not every school fits every child, as not every teacher fits equally to all the pupils he or she teaches. Independent schools allow for different pedagogical approaches, from Montessori, Steiner Waldorf, to different strands in the vocational education and training sector, tourism, fashion design, woodworking, etc. Can you please change the screen? Thank you. That is why parents want pluralism in education. For them, the right to education implies to be able to decide on and even promote the educational institution that best fits each individual's child, so that they are able to develop their full and unique potential and become fulfilled and happy adults, independently of the socioeconomic, religious, ethnical, or other family background. There are different models on how to achieve this. And as very rightly mentioned in the report, we have to make sure that nobody is left out and no child is left behind. We also have to guarantee that the quality of the schools, kindergartens, etc., is evaluated by independent institutions. States can, for example, ensure the proper training of teachers and set standards for their professional qualification. They can also take on their remuneration, no matter in which sector they teach, like in France or in Austria. In Spain, this is currently heavily disputed, unfortunately. Or take the example of the Netherlands, where each child gets an education budget, like a backpack, that it brings to whichever educational institution is chosen by parents, and also sometimes by the youngster when they get older. And then the institution can build their educational project with these financial resources. Apart from the funding, however, it is clear that teaching and learning will have to undergo a deep and substantial transformation. COVID-19, as far as scientists tell us, is not the first and certainly not the last severe crisis that mankind will be facing in the future. We therefore welcome also the last conclusion, number 8 of the report, which points to the importance of developing the psycho-emotional competences of all persons and the resilience of societies as a whole. This means, even though learning to read, write, and calculate will remain the foundation of education, many other competences and skills will be needed to face future challenges. The crisis has shown that health literacy is one of the important factors that we need to take much more into account. Financial literacy is crucial to be able to lead an independent life. Media and digital literacy play an important role in times of fake news, hate speech, and online and offline discrimination. Respecting diversity is an essential habit in today's multicultural societies. And improving communication skills will help to foster mutual understanding and trust, as well as empathy. Digitalization is, however, a factor to be reckoned with, even in areas where electricity is scarce, bandwidth insufficient, and people lack the necessary equipment. The development in that direction will accelerate, and to make sure that nobody is left behind, we will need to think of ways of how to equip all of them with the necessary skills and technical preconditions. The same goes for climate change, which is not so much talked about at the moment, but is extremely interlinked with the question of migration and has a long-lasting effect on education as well. To conclude, on behalf of the European Parents Association, I would like to thank the Special Rapporteur and her team and all the speakers here at the panel. I would like the team of the Special Rapporteur to thank for the extensive report, which we appreciate for its detailed stock-taking of the situation and its pertinent conclusions. As parents, we would like to go further and plead for the development of a vision for the future of education. This vision should be a co-creation of all stakeholders, because the future doesn't simply fall on our heads, as sometimes people try to make you believe, but we can shape the pathway. In order to do so, it might help to set a goal for a time that most of us won't either be around any longer, or at least not so actively involved, 2070 or 2080 or something, to eliminate the immediate personal interest of individuals, but also of political parties, governments, and other stakeholders. What kind of world do we want for our children, grandchildren, and future generations? Maybe it's easier to fix goals for such a point in time and then develop a plan how to get there. Establish intermediate steps, fix short, medium, and long-term objectives in line with the big vision, taking into account the local or regional context. Traditions and good practices could help the establishment of such educational projects to truly raise children fit for the challenges of the 21st century. Let's pull all forces together and make the most of our common resources to ensure a brighter future for all children. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Arya, for this presentation, and thank you for once again raising with this energy you have the voice of parents on this debate. We hope we will be able to connect with the special reporter like we have been. Sorry, before to continue with that, my apologies for the presentation. We thought like it would be easier to connect. We are all learning on how to work with Zoom. I hope we will be able, at least for a few minutes, to have the special reporter. We are working on that.
We can't any longer.
Sorry? Oh. In the meanwhile, I think we had some questions. Oh, I'm freezing, they are telling me.
Now it's okay, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I was saying my apologies because, well, we are having this problem with the presentation. Also, we are having these problems putting the special reporter online. She's texting us that she's having some connectivity problems. We still have another 30 minutes. And I think we have some questions. So I'll give the floor to the people that have some questions, like Berta Marco. And if she's able to connect in the next 25 minutes, we will hear this presentation. My apologies for this inconvenience we are dealing with, but yeah, we are all learning from this coronavirus crisis, even in terms of technology. Even people like me that are under 30 and struggling with new technologies. So sorry, and also before to continue, we will put together with we are going to update and we are going to upload, this video in our YouTube channel, and we are going to try to put the links of the presentation of the documents that have been presented and of the PowerPoint that some people were asking us, okay? So I'm going to give the floor to Berta Marco that had some questions. And just a second. Okay. Berta, I don't know if you can hear us. I saw like you were having a question, so you have the floor. No, you cannot hear it. Okay. Sorry about that to all the people attending. Okay, we cannot hear Berta neither now.
Maybe she can put the question in the Q&A or in the
Berta,
chat and you can read it.
You can. Okay, let's see. Nope. Okay, in the meanwhile, I'm going to launch a question. I have a question for Ashley, a concrete question like, is there any good practices that you can share with us on from the US on how civil society, teachers, and parents have been working to overcome this crisis in the private areas? Or any clues you can share with the audience?
Oh, absolutely. So I can think of a couple right away. So I work in Baltimore City Public School District, which is where Johns Hopkins is located. It's a state school system. It's a district school. And many of the families did not have access to online connectivity. They didn't have devices and so on. So the school district partnered with their curriculum provider called Great Minds and with public television to broadcast lessons every day over the television. So that's the first example. A second example would be of our charter sector. Now, charter schools are publicly funded, but they are delivered by nonprofits largely. There are some for-profits, but they're delivered mostly by nonprofit organizations. And some 3 million children are educated in charter school. Some of the highest performing charter schools have partnered together over the summer to deliver exactly what we were talking about, with the best instructional teachers, instructional coaches, teaching hundreds of kids, and other teachers playing the role of support. And so that's a second example. Finally, some of our archdioceses have worked very hard to forego the tuition that allows low-income families to continue to be enrolled. It's a real crisis in some states. And the New York City Partnership Schools is a high-performing group of Catholic schools, and they have done this, where they're raising private funds so that low-income families can continue to stay within the school community. As another example, in Florida, which has a lot more educational pluralism than many of our states, the largest scholarship granting organization has created a network of schools that are preparing for the highest level of academic delivery in the fall. And there, they work with parents, they work with teachers, they're training teachers over the summer, and they will be fielding our school culture survey throughout the next few years just to provide some data points of how kids are doing and making sure that all kids feel included and all parents feel included. Very, very important.
Thank you so much.
We just wish those were scaled up. We wish those
perfect.
were.
I mean, that was exactly the kind of examples I was looking for. There are some questions here concerning from Education International about the teachers struggling during this crisis, especially in terms of them receiving their salary. The report of the Special Rapporteur mentioned that, how some schools and therefore the teachers are struggling to overcome this crisis due to the lack of funding to pay their salaries. I want to ask first to Philippe Richard, like how are Catholic schools are dealing with the coronavirus in terms of lack of funding to pay the salaries of the teachers, and if he can share some good practices. And also, I was thinking from the parents' perspective, how are you perceiving the lack of funding to certain schools, especially concerning the salaries of the teachers? I give the floor first to Philippe, and then I'll go to Aria. Thank you.
Alors, merci de cette question. C'est une question qui est très, très importante et qui a des considérations, pas seulement, on va dire, éthiques, enfin éthiques surtout, mais des considérations aussi très corporatistes, puisqu'il s'agit de l'enseignement, c'est quand même une profession et donc les enseignants qui travaillent dans une école sont des gens qui ont un contrat et qui doivent être payés. Donc, il n'y a aucune raison que les enseignants puissent être victimes de la crise, alors même que pour la plupart d'entre eux, ils ont continué à travailler. Alors, ça, c'est le principe. La réalité, elle est parfois différente. Et le rapport que nous avons fait montre bien toutes les différences d'appréciation entre notamment les pays développés et les pays en voie de développement. Si on prend un pays développé, comme par exemple, même si c'est une notion de distinguer entre pays développés et pays en voie de développement, c'est pour faciliter le travail, mais c'est beaucoup plus raffiné quand même cette perspective. Mais quand même, notre rapport montre bien que, par exemple, si on prend un pays comme la France, où les enseignants sont payés par l'État, il n'y a pas eu de perte de salaire des enseignants. Bon, donc, c'est quand même une chance incroyable. Alors que dans beaucoup d'autres pays, notamment en Afrique ou ailleurs, il y a encore dans ce webinaire là, des gens qui nous écoutent et qui sont de l'Afrique. Ils savent qu'à partir du moment où les familles ne peuvent plus payer les scolarités, ou ne peuvent plus, ou tout simplement considèrent à juste ou à mauvaise raison, je ne sais pas, que puisque les enfants ne vont plus à l'école, la question de la scolarité se pose. On a vu dans beaucoup de pays des parents qui ont dit puisque nos enfants ne vont plus à l'école, pourquoi est-ce qu'on paierait la scolarité pour les mois pendant lesquels ils ne sont pas allés à l'école? Mais si les parents ne payent plus la scolarité, alors du coup, forcément, l'école n'est plus en mesure de payer l'enseignant. Alors,
their teacher salaries. So I think that this is interesting.
Mais qui montre qu'il faut vraiment profiter de cette crise pour avoir non pas une analyse simplement conjoncturelle, mais une analyse vraiment structurelle, c'est-à-dire de voir comment la structure même de la relation de l'enseignant à la participation au service public de l'enseignement dans les différents pays se pose. Je pense que dans l'ensemble, les enseignants qui sont salariés par l'État ont dû recevoir leur salaire, mais vous savez que même dans un certain nombre de cas, en dehors même de la crise du Covid-19, dans beaucoup de pays, les enseignants reçoivent leur salaire avec 1 an, 2 ans, 3 ans de retard. Le nombre d'années blanches qu'on a compté déjà en Afrique depuis ces dernières années est incroyable. Donc, je pense que c'est un problème qui est beaucoup plus important que celui strictement lié au Covid-19 et que là aussi, il y a toute une réflexion à avoir et je pense que le rapporteur spécial sur l'éducation doit aussi nous aider à lancer ce débat-là de manière très calme, très posée et sans, comment dire, sans conflit, hein, pour vraiment vérifier comment on peut rapprocher la participation d'un enseignant au service public d'enseignement dans une relation contractuelle qui sécurise sa relation. Il faut comprendre qu'à partir du moment où dans un pays d'Afrique, les parents ne payent plus l'école ne peut plus payer les enseignants. C'est aussi simple que ça. Voilà. Mais il faut qu'on dépasse, il faut que la crise nous aide à dépasser ça et il faut que globalement, on puisse travailler avec les syndicats, avec les États, avec l'ensemble des partenaires à sécuriser cette relation de l'enseignant au service public de l'enseignement.
Aria, do you have something to say?
Yes.
I'll give you go for it.
Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, for parents, of course, this is a huge issue because imagine your child goes to school and then they will learn that not only they have been out of school since end of February or March, but that also their school will not exist any longer in September and that they will have to maybe fit into a totally different setting in the fall. So we were talking about mental health and well-being. You can imagine the devastating effect that can have on a child's psychological and I mean mental health and well-being. So I think that all the stakeholders have a common interest to come together and to solve these issues together. What we unfortunately see in some countries that due to ideological reasons, some governments, parties try to use this crisis to exacerbate these gaps even more, and to reduce the funding that they used to give to schools, or payment of teachers. And we really think that this is an enormous danger. We see that problem in Italy. We see that problem now in Spain as well, where apparently there's a law in preparation which will not fund the teachers that are working in non-state schools, which was not the case up to now. I really think that this is not the time for conflicts. I think we really need to pool all our resources together to get out of it as unscarred as possible, and to make learning and teaching possible in the fall again for all children, in order not to lose anybody on the way. Because the danger is that with all this kind of hassle and going back and forth, if parents don't know where to go and where to turn, people will sometimes even leave their children at home, and then there's no proper education. I don't think that's admissible. Yeah. So we are really very worried about these kind of developments. Absolutely. And we see that in some countries it works really well. I mean, where cooperation works well, then a lot of things are possible. Yeah, I mean, Ashley is from the Johns Hopkins University. We have had great cooperation with Joyce Epstein and her 8 principles of how to involve the parents. So we can really, really recommend these kind of models. And I think if we work all together, we can make this possible. But if governments say, well, we don't want to have to deal with the parents, and we do what we want, this will not work, and it will have a negative impact on the most vulnerable, which are the children, and especially those from low socioeconomic background.
I have another question.
Si vous permettez, je vais rajouter un tout petit mot, parce que je suis très j'aime beaucoup ce que vient de dire Archa, et c'est très important, il faut qu'on reprenne ça. Et je voudrais juste donner un petit exemple. Aujourd'hui, on a des pays dans lesquels le système est en train de complètement s'écrouler. Je pense par exemple au Liban, où vous avez 80% des écoles dites catholiques qui représentent un nombre d'élèves incroyable qui vont disparaître à cause de cette crise Covid-19 qui s'ajoute aussi à une crise économique et à une crise politique. Et puis des pays comme le Pérou aussi, où la situation est catastrophique. Donc, que vont devenir ces jeunes, et comment l'État va pouvoir prendre en charge lui-même des centaines de milliers d'élèves que jusque-là, il ne prenait pas en charge. Donc, on voit bien que ce que vient de dire Archa est très important, et moi, je soutiens complètement ce qu'elle est en train de dire.
Many thanks, Philippe. I have a question for David. I think you are so here our friend, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Omede Okolo is asking about the importance of the cultural solidarity to overcome this crisis, especially bearing in mind these needy children. I know you've been working on the right to peace, and also you've been really active on creating networks, focusing on how to help children in need. How from your experience, is there any good practices you have seen in your experience that could help to have a target help for needy children during this crisis?
I think this crisis of, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. This crisis of COVID-19 has been posing so many challenges, not only in the field of the right to education that we are discussing today, the issue of the right to health and the right to movement. Because if we cannot move, and then we cannot work, and then if we cannot work and we cannot obtain the sufficient, salaries to maintain our families. In any case, I think one of the most important, objective is then the quality education has been discussed further by our colleagues, but the quality of education is also measured by the capacity then to equip the children and youth to fight against racism, to fight against discrimination, to fight against the hate speech. This is one of the biggest problems that is facing today the international community. And of course, as the colleague, referred, the issue of solidarity. This should be one of the main principles remained to face to this crisis. And for that, I think maybe we need to recall that we are celebrating this year the 75th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations. One of the main principles of the UN Charter is the principle of dialogue and cooperation. For this crisis, and then to reinforce the right to education, we need cooperation and solidarity among all the member states of the European Union, as you are part of this intergovernmental organization of the UN system. And finally, I would like then to recall that taking into account that the right to education is so much important, governments should invest in not only in professors, invest in quality of this education then at the local and national and global level, because this should be one of the main priorities of all societies and of governments for the future, no?
Thank you, David. Yeah, we are trying to. My apologies, because apparently the special reporter has been following the full debate, and we are trying still to reach her. So the fact that she was not connected with her name, we couldn't put her as a panelist. I'm going to launch the last question, and we are going to finish with this good panel. My apologies to all the attendees for that we haven't been able to connect with the special reporter. We are also going to put in the updated YouTube video her report, so all you can know about her work and yeah, once again, sorry about that. I have this last question. It's for IPA. They say, sorry. The question is, how has IPA impacted parents' commitment to be the primary education of their children? And also they are asking if you have a good practice to share. From Sara Garcia of Instituto María Auxiliatrice.
Thank you very much for that question. When I started out to be a parent representative, when I came to meetings, people would say, oh yes, the parents are so important, full stop. And then nothing would happen. Today, and that's about 30 years later, we are being invited to all sorts of events. We are invited to speak up at conferences. Our voice is being heard in working groups. So we have come, at least in Europe, I must say we have come a very, very long way. That does not mean that we are at the end of the pathway. We are still fighting for a lot of things, but the message, if you like, has sort of sunk in that if you look at the studies, 80% of what children learn is not in the formal context. It's not at school. Only 20% of the learning really takes place in a formal context. So if we consider that, then you know that the families, the peers, the wider community are also very important factors that need to be taken into account. And that's why we advocate for a collaboration and cooperation among all these stakeholders, because only together can we make that possible, that all children can develop their full potential. I think that's the most important point. And if you say, well, how did we do that? In German, we have a saying, it's the drop that makes a hole in the stone. So it's the dripping, constant nagging sometimes that makes you get to this point. It was not done, like Rome was not built in one day. We did not achieve that in a very short time. It took us, as I said, the European Parents Association has been in existence now for 35 years. So we have come a long way and we are continuing, and we hope that even after the crisis, and especially with the crisis, we will continue to be heard, because I think through the crisis, people have understood the important role that parents play, because they have been really essential in helping their children, doing their homework at home, coping with the tasks, trying to make it possible that children follow the online instruction. I mean, we have had examples from children where there was only a smartphone at home, but these children have been able to do their homework. They have been able to participate in online meetings, where in other cases where there was lots of devices at home, but the parents had to go out to work, and the eldest child had to take care of the smaller ones, and she could not do her own homework because she was so busy taking care of smaller siblings. Yeah, so we have all sorts of responses there in Austria, where I'm based. We had a survey done 2 weeks after the start of the pandemic. We got 12,000 respondents from the parents, which is a huge number if you consider that we only have 8 million inhabitants, where parents told us all their worries, and we had really astonishing responses there.
We're about to finish, but we finally managed to connect with the special rapporteur. Thank you, Mrs. Bolli, and sorry for all the inconvenience. We are gonna finish with your intervention. Our idea was to finish at 4:30, but as you are here, we are gonna make this 10 minutes longer so you can express your concerns. I'm aware that you've been following a big part of the debate, so you know about what most of the speakers have said. And now I give you the floor so you can share your concerns. Thank you so much once again for being here, and sorry about the inconvenience.
Yes, no problem, Ignacy. Thank you so much for inviting me. I hope you heard me?
Yeah, we can hear you without problem.
Great. Thank you. It's really a pleasure, as usual, to participate also to your activities. And OIDEL is really making a wonderful work for humanity. I want really to tell you that and recognize also all your effort, you and your team and the network, to support the work of the Special Rapporteur for making effectiveness of the right to education. Thank you so much for that, yes, you and your team, really. I need now to speak in French because it's possible to have the translation after thanking you and the team. Je voudrais très sincèrement vous remercier encore une fois et puis dire que je suis désolée, vous voyez un peu que la technique, elle nous joue des tours. Donc, quand on parle, par exemple, de la formation à distance, voilà, ça fait partie aussi des inconvénients, malheureusement, sur lesquels il va falloir travailler. Je voudrais féliciter l'ensemble des intervenants et des intervenantes au cours de ce webinaire qui ont vraiment déjà pris en compte une bonne partie des éléments qui concernent mon rapport. Mais je voudrais quand même profiter de cette opportunité pour insister essentiellement sur un postulat et puis aussi insister sur les leçons apprises. Le premier postulat sur lequel je voudrais vraiment insister, c'est de dire que par rapport au droit à l'éducation, il ne faut pas oublier qu'avant le COVID-19, il y avait déjà 1 milliard d'êtres humains qui n'avaient pas droit à l'éducation, dont 258 millions de jeunes qui n'avaient pas la chance, bien sûr, d'avoir ce droit à l'éducation. Donc, et la majorité, bien sûr, de ces personnes qui n'ont pas droit à l'éducation, ce sont des gens issus des familles pauvres, ce sont des réfugiés, ce sont les filles et les femmes, mais ce sont aussi des nomades, ce sont des gens à besoins spécifiques. Et vous voyez que c'est toujours un peu ces groupes-là qui ont à la fois des besoins spécifiques, mais qui sont aussi souvent dans des conditions assez spéciales où on demande au système d'éducation d'être capable de s'adapter à leurs demandes et à leurs besoins. Et ça, c'est avant le Covid. Et quand il y a eu le Covid, l'impact maintenant du Covid, selon les données bien sûr de l'UNESCO, c'est plus de 1,5 milliard d'apprenants qui, bien sûr, n'ont plus pu, avec la fermeture et le confinement, n'ont plus eu la chance, bien sûr, de poursuivre les apprentissages. C'est vrai, les États se sont organisés, la société civile fortement s'est organisée et l'ensemble des acteurs se sont organisés pour apporter une réponse à cette question, bien sûr, de crise, parce que c'est vraiment la plus grosse crise mondiale au niveau de l'éducation et surtout au niveau aussi de l'accélération des inégalités. Et pour moi, c'est vraiment le lieu de féliciter la société civile, de féliciter l'ensemble des enseignants et des enseignantes. Et particulièrement, je disais, les femmes qui sont restées dans les familles, qui à la fois, en plus des tâches familiales, se sont organisées pour s'assurer que les enfants puissent continuer leur apprentissage. Ça a été vraiment une responsabilité très forte et je pense que c'est vraiment le lieu de les féliciter et de reconnaître ce travail extraordinaire qui a été fait. Maintenant, les leçons apprises. Il y a beaucoup d'intervenants, bien sûr, qui ont déjà parlé de ces leçons apprises. La première leçon apprise, c'est qu'il faut se dire qu'il y a cette question d'interconnexion des droits. Le droit à l'alimentation, le droit à la santé, le droit à un logement décent, le droit à l'hygiène, le droit à l'eau, etc. Ce sont des droits fondamentaux sur lesquels, si le droit à l'éducation n'est pas en interconnexion, ça ne va pas fonctionner. Un enfant qui a faim, il ne peut pas écouter son enseignant. Un enfant qui n'est pas dans de bonnes conditions, même avec les meilleures tablettes du monde, qui n'a pas un petit espace où il peut effectivement s'isoler, s'organiser pour écouter son enseignant, il ne pourra pas faire de la formation à distance. Donc, il y a une sorte d'interrelation et d'interconnexion des droits, et ça, c'est vraiment la première leçon apprise. La seconde leçon apprise au cours de ce Covid, c'est aussi la capacité des acteurs à écouter et à laisser la participation s'exprimer. Là où les pays qui ont le mieux réussi, par exemple, l'organisation de la formation à distance ou la réouverture des écoles dans de bonnes conditions, ce sont les pays qui ont fait une communication extraordinaire avec les enseignants et les enseignantes, le réseau des syndicats, mais aussi les parents qui ont parlé aux parents, qui ont parlé aux familles et qui leur ont donné la responsabilité en termes d'écoute. Et là où ça a le mieux fonctionné, il a fallu cette dimension d'écoute et cette dimension de communication. La troisième leçon apprise, c'est la capacité aussi à décentraliser le système éducatif, tant au niveau des décisions, mais au niveau du financement, mais aussi la capacité d'innover. On a vu par exemple des enseignants qui ont innové, qui ont libéré leur génie créateur, qui sont allés chercher d'autres moyens, d'autres méthodes pour s'assurer que même les enfants qui étaient laissés en rade, de ce système, ils puissent vraiment réintégrer le processus de formation. Mais c'est la capacité aussi de centraliser tout le processus pédagogique sur les apprenants et sur les apprenantes. On a longtemps dit qu'il faut que l'éducation réponde aux besoins ou aux attentes de chaque type d'apprenant. Le Covid est encore venu nous rappeler alors, en nous disant c'est fondamentalement important que les apprentissages soient focus sur ça. Et enfin, toute la question de la responsabilité des familles et des parents. Je crois que aussi c'est une leçon forte et je suis vraiment très heureuse d'avoir entendu au cours de l'intervention des différents acteurs, Arja particulièrement, qu'il a mentionné et qu'il a fortement vraiment mis en exergue, donc je ne vais pas insister énormément là-dessus. Le dernier point sur lequel je voudrais vraiment mettre l'accent, c'est la question aussi du bien-être, mais aussi de l'appui, de l'accompagnement psychosocial et de la santé mentale. Il faut reconnaître que le monde entier a été traumatisé. Et tous les acteurs de la chaîne de l'éducation, comme chaque citoyen, a vraiment été stressé, a eu la peur au ventre par rapport à cette maladie et par rapport à ce contexte, avec toutes les mesures qui ont été prises. Donc, ça a apporté une sorte de climat difficile. Et pour nous, il va falloir qu'on puisse adresser fortement et très fortement la question du bien-être et la question de l'appui et de l'accompagnement psychosocial et surtout aussi de la santé mentale. Parce que si on veut construire l'inclusion, il va falloir s'occuper aussi et de façon singulière les personnes qui vivent en situation de handicap. C'est fondamentalement important d'y penser parce que quand on pense à ces groupes très spécifiques, c'est là où on s'assure aussi qu'on réalise bien sûr l'effectivité du droit à l'éducation. Donc, je voudrais vraiment encore vous féliciter, mais vous dire tout simplement que toutes les questions aussi de privatisation de l'éducation, il va falloir qu'il y ait un débat sociétal où, bien sûr, l'acteur privé, il est présent et on va bien sûr définir son rôle et sa responsabilité. Et comme je disais au départ dans le rapport, les principes d'Abidjan constituent déjà une sorte de guide qui peut aider les États à poser les questions, à poser les problématiques, mais justement à aider aussi cet acteur privé-là à s'organiser et à répondre parce qu'il y a toujours ces questions d'éthique, il y a toujours aussi ces questions, bien sûr, des informations, surtout quand on parle de la formation à distance, qu'il va falloir tenir compte. Merci beaucoup encore et encore félicitations ici à toi et à OIDEL, à toute l'équipe. C'était vraiment un plaisir de vous avoir. Je suis encore désolée pour ce problème technique qui s'est malheureusement qui a interféré, mais à la fin, on s'est quand même retrouvés. Félicitations encore. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la rapporteure. Avec votre intervention, on va conclure cet événement. Surtout, bon, je crois qu'on a fini avec beaucoup de questions à répondre, mais ça, c'est toujours un bon signal. Ça a été aussi, on le fait pour les pauvres les interpréteurs qui après, oui, they told me they cannot hear me. Sorry, I'm gonna move to English once again. Yeah, we are finishing because the translators also need to rest. But thank you all for being here. Thank you to the special reporter, to Ashley, to David, to Philippe, to Aria. Thank you to Matilde. There has been a really interesting seminar where we have talked about education, but we also have learned how to use Zoom for the next time. But that's the way we civil society work. We are small, we are flexible, we are ready to adapt, to change, as we have done with COVID. And we have proved it once again with this kind of seminar. And thank you so much to all of you for being here. As I said, we are gonna upload this video in our YouTube channel. We are gonna share there the report of the special reporter and the different presentations that have been shared here. And once again, thank you and see you all around. See you soon.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye.